there weren't a lot of Famicom strategy games to escape Japan, and Conflict is one of the very few that was released on the NES. But as an NES game, it is super obscure, so I'd have to guess that it wasn't a big success. Part of that may be the problem I ran into. Conflict doesn't have a learning curve so much as a learning cliff. Until you really understand the system, and I mean really, really understand the system, you're gonna get trounced. In my hour of play, I didn't land a successful hit on any enemies. I also never successfully withdrew from battle. The AI is brutal, it's given massive advantages, and the combat system is clear as mud. This is a game that, regardless of any other qualities, is really difficult to get into. The concept of the game is a hypothetical war between a Western-aligned power with NATO-backed weaponry facing off against the Russian military. Although there's several war games with that theme, it was already feeling dated in 1989 as the Cold War was drawing to a close, and here in 2022, the concept's just completely laughable. You always have to play on the NATO side, the Blue Forces. There's 3 difficulty levels, and they determine how many points to buy reinforcements you get. You can also choose if you get to move all of your units on each turn, or if each side is only allowed to move 3 units per turn. I think I like the slower paced 3 units per turn better. It gave the game an extra twist. There are 16 scenarios that you can play, and accessing the 16th scenario requires that you obtain a password by beating the other 15. If you can beat that scenario at the level 3 difficulty, then you get to see the ending. The obvious big thing in Conflict is that this is a hex map. And it's the first hex map in a console strategy game, assuming you only count hexes as drawing the actual hexagons, rather than the 6 connected offset square patterns that people use because they're easier to draw than hexagons. The goal in every scenario is to capture the enemy command unit, which will be a tank of some kind. It's the one with an H marked in the corner. On every turn you move your units around the map, and of course it costs more movement to move through rough terrain like mountains than it does through open plains. If you end your turn on a city, airfield, or factory that doesn't belong to you, then at the start of your next turn it will be under your control. The factories and airfields can produce units, and you can only produce 1 unit per turn. Cities generate income for you, and you're going to find that the enemy starts with a ton of money to buy units with, while you have almost none. When 2 units come together, it's time to do battle. And the combat system is the big challenge in Conflict. First, you have to choose if you're going to attack, defend, or retreat. Depending on the circumstances, attack might not be available for you. If you choose to attack, then you need to select which weapon you're going to use. Your primary weapon or your secondary weapon. On tanks, your primary weapon is going to be your main gun, while you have machine guns as your secondary weapon. On aircraft, it could be missiles or bombs. If you choose to defend or run away, then you're given 6 defensive maneuvers. These maneuvers are different for every unit, and not all of them have all of the options. However, their position in the grid always reflects the same thing. Starting from the upper left and then going to the right, you have low chance of evasion but high chance of counterattack, strong evasion of the primary weapon, strong evasion of the secondary weapon, and then on the second row, it's high evasion and no counterattack, high evasion and high counterattack, though it costs some of your resources, and finally, observe the enemy. Now in other strategy games that we've seen, both sides fire off a volley and then it goes on to the next turn. In Conflict, combat continues until one side has died or retreated. Retreating uses those same defensive options, and it is not often effective. The key to the combat is you have to know which actions are effective against which vehicles and in which situations. And really, the best way that you're going to get that is through experience. And it's going to take you a long time to learn what you need to do and where. There are 20 different units available to each side in Conflict. About half of them are aircraft. The game comes with a handy chart that tells you what's strong against what, and you will definitely need to reference it. I made absolutely no progress while I was playing Conflict, I played 2 different scenarios and quickly lost twice. And in this case, I feel that I'm the problem rather than the game. Maybe if I sat down and worked with it for 5 or 6 hours, I'd be able to get into it. Still, I don't see myself going back to this one. It's not a bad game, it's just difficult to get into, and I'm not sure that if I put in the effort, I'd find something worth playing afterwards. In Japan, conflict is all but forgotten. The few people who do mention it just talk about how difficult it is. This is a game that's designed for experts at playing the game's systems. Except that the only way that you become an expert is by playing this game. No wonder nobody remembers this one.